There are things that we know about our lives that we haven't activated yet because we don't know what's waiting on the other side. But when you use what you know, it starts to lead you into the direction that God says He's calling you towards. The most powerful thing that any of us can do when we have this feeling is to go anyway. Yeah. So Mary doesn't feel qualified, but she goes anyway. She goes not knowing how she's supposed to take this baby and turn it into a king. When the angel of the Lord appears to Mary, he tells Mary everything that child is going to be. But she doesn't receive the promise in the form that God said that it was going to end up in. God, help me to say it. There are moments when we receive something from God that doesn't look like where it's going to end. Oh, I feel like that's a word for somebody. That you're looking at the baby, wondering how the baby's going to become king. You're looking at the small thing, trying to figure out how is that ever going to become the big thing. God, you told me that I would be the one that would break the generational curse, but right now I look like every other generation that came before me. How am I going to take this small thing and turn it into a big thing? God, you told me that you would bless my business, but I can't even get the financing I need. God says, I didn't give it to you in the form that it's going to end up in. I gave it to you in the form that would grow you up into the person who could raise it into everything that it could be. I feel like somebody's got to get that down in your spirit. Do not despise the days of small beginnings, that it started off small so that you could grow with it. Because when you grow with it, it grows you up. When you grow with it, it grows you up. And so Mary teaches us the power of going anyway. She questions her ability initially, but ultimately, she chooses to trust God's plan for her life. Mary chose to just go anyway. Sometimes you have to just go anyway. God gives you what you need as you go. And sometimes we want all of the answers, and God, I want to know how you're going to do it. I'm not saying I won't go. I'm just saying, can you tell me exactly how it's going to happen? And God says, I'll tell you how it's going to happen when you start moving. Because God is looking for someone who He can order steps along the way. I feel like there's someone in this room that if God gave you all of the steps right now, that you would feel more in control than you actually are. When you go anyway, it is a sign to God that I don't have to have all of the answers. I just want to be where you tell me I am supposed to be. God, I don't know how you're going to do it in my marriage. I don't know how you're going to do it in my family, but I am going to go anyway. And when I go, you meet me where you told me you were going to meet me. When you go, God meets you. He's calling you to where He is. That's why we have to go, because God calls you to where He is. And when we move in that direction, it is a sign to Him that we can be trusted. Because there are moments when God orders our steps, but we got to take them first. I got to forgive. I got to go anyway. I want to stay stuck in this bitterness. I want to stay stuck in this pain, but I can't stay here, so I got to go anyway. And Mary starts going anyway. And so some of you are wondering, okay, I'll go anyway. I'll do what God told me to do. I don't know how He's going to do it. I don't have all of the resources that I need in order to do it, but I want to go anyway. And so Mary teaches us a valuable lesson. And if you're taking notes, I want you to write this down, because what Mary teaches us in those moments where we have to go anyway is that the power in going starts with you using what you know. Mary begins to just follow the customs of the Jewish people at that time. God gave her something that is going to ultimately deliver Israel, but right now she doesn't know how it's going to become a deliverer. And so because she doesn't know how she's going to get from A to Z, she just starts working what she knows. She knows that when I have a baby, that I need to wait until my time of purification is over. And after that, I need to go into Jerusalem and I need to present the baby. She works what she knows while she goes. The most powerful thing that any of us can do is activate what we know. Because when we activate what we know, it gives God permission to show us more and to teach us more. Imagine had Eve been in the garden and she simply activated what she knew. There are things that we know about our lives that we haven't activated yet because we don't know what's waiting on the other side. But when you use what you know, it starts to lead you into the direction that God says He's calling you towards. That means the relationship has to end. That means that we have to have the forgiveness down in our heart, even though we don't believe that the person is truly sorry. Our forgiveness is not predicated on whether or not that person is actually sorry. My forgiveness is predicated on the fact that I'm going anyway, that I'm not going to stay stuck where that pain met me. I'm not going to stay stuck where that disappointment met me. I'm going anyway. So Mary begins to go anyway, and she's using what she knows. Because learning how to go anyway and using what you know, I think, is one of the most powerful things that any of us can do. So after she's come out of the presence, Mary begins the task of living out what God said to do. And so in the process of doing this, she is presenting this child, Jesus, to Simeon. And I have to be honest, when I read this text, I felt like it was out of order. Because Simeon says in verse 29, he identifies with Mary and confirms with Mary what God already said about what she was carrying. He says, Lord, now you are letting your servant depart in peace according to your word. For my eyes have seen your salvation, which you have prepared before the face of all peoples, a light to bring revelation to the Gentiles. Mary already knew all of those things, that is what she was carrying, and that's who the child would become. So in many ways, this is confirmation for her. But then Simeon says something that seems like it is contradicting what he just said. Because he says, behold, this child is destined for the fall and rising of many in Israel, and for a sign which will be spoken against. Yes, a sword will pierce through your own soul. When the angel of the Lord came, he didn't say nothing about no swords. Let's see, Ebonics version slipping out again. God, when you gave me the promise, when you told me what I was carrying, when you told me who I would become, when you told me I was fearfully and wonderfully made, when you told me that all things were going to work together for my good, you didn't tell me about the swords that were going to be a part of the journey. This feels like a contradiction from what you said. I don't know if anyone else in this room has ever been in a position where God made you a promise, but then a sword came and the sword didn't look like the promise, and the trauma didn't look like the promise, and the bankruptcy didn't look like the promise. God, how am I supposed to lay hold of the promise with a sword piercing through my soul? I felt like Simeon should have given the bad news first and then the good news. I felt like he should have said, all of these things are going to happen, but he's going to be resurrected and everything's going to be okay in the end. But for some reason, it doesn't work like that. He gives the revelation and the promise first, and then he gives the process afterwards. Because it is not on Simeon to remind you what the promise is. It is on us to remember what the promise is in the middle of the process. When I was studying, all I could hear was God said, I put the but first. I put that thing that you thought should be the but at the end of the bad news, I said it first. And then I started looking back over my own life and all of the moments where I felt like a sword was piercing through my own soul, where I was waiting for God to say, but this is going to work out in the end, and but you're going to be healed, and but all things are going to work together for your good. But God says, I'm not going to repeat what I already told you. I put the but first. And I just came to Fort Lauderdale, Florida, to let somebody know that I know it took a lot for you to get into this room. And I know you're wondering how God is going to work it out, but I hear God saying I put the but first. That when I wrote in the scriptures that all things were going to work together for your good, I wasn't just talking about the people in the text. I was talking about the people who would hear my voice and follow what I said to do. That means that at the end of the day, the bet is still on. At the end of the day, the promise is still yes and amen. That means that no weapon formed against you will prosper. I put that in there first. I know you're looking at the weapon, but I'm telling you it won't prosper. I know you're looking at the depression, but I'm telling you the joy of the Lord is your strength. I know you're looking at the struggle, but I'm telling you that when it's all said and done, though he slays you, you can trust in him. I put the but first. That means that you got to start telling your situation, I know what it looks like, but I know what God said first. And I'm hanging on to what God said first in the middle of what's taking place. I don't let the middle shake me. I remember what God said first. God said I was fearfully and wonderfully made. God said that I was going to make it to the other side. God said that his spirit would overtake me and it would show up right on time. I put the but. I put it first.
At TBN, our mission is to use every available means to reach as many individuals and families as possible with the life-changing gospel of Jesus Christ.
Thank you for helping make the gospel of grace go around the world.
Without you, we couldn't do it. God bless you.